Good morning, everybody. It's April 18th. Hope you enjoyed a couple minutes of uninterrupted epidemic sound instrumental. Our royalty-free, copyright, without copyright instrumental that we like to use as our background music to keep things streaming when you're streaming. Always want to have some water dripping through the hose so that it doesn't freeze. Yeah. This is a simulcast, as most of you know, between several social networks, including YouTube Live and Facebook Live. X Live has been questionable, so we're uploading to two of them simultaneously. It's a live broadcast with both those social networks. And so if you're disposed to Twitter only, why don't you switch over to YouTube or Facebook Live and listen to our morning show, which basically just pretend we're at Denny's having a cup of coffee, and there's several of us sitting around the table, and we can talk about whatever we want to talk about. And my internet connection is a little bit crazy, so sometimes we have difficulty staying on the broadcast with the internet because it's a little flaky. I tested it just before 8 o'clock, and it was slow, but the upload speed was pretty substantial. I only need about 20 megabits per second upload bandwidth, and it showed 60 megabit per second, the diameter of the pipe, if you will. And so that's how bandwidth works. It's like how big is your pipe, so that the bits can come through. If the pipe is too skinny, like if you're out gardening and you have a half-inch hose and it's 50 feet long, and you just don't have enough to get any pressure, so to speak. You have the pressure, it's just being consumed by the small diameter of your hose. I remember at our old Floresta house, which we lived in, since 1995. We were there for 20 years or so, right? And in fact, until 2013, October 2013, from 1995. So, yeah, that's quite a bit of time. Anyway, we had hose bibs around. I tested the water pressure. It was like 75 pounds per square inch at the hose bib, but I had a half-inch high hose, and it was like a 75-foot hose, so I could, get around to all our little plants all over the place and hose out the driveway and clean things up, And, the hose, with the spritzer nozzle on it, it was just like it was just not a lot of pressure. So I increased the hose, took away the old hose, put on a new hose, and 3/4 inch hose instead of half inch, and the amount of flow at the nozzle was, really very much increased. So the diameter of the hose makes a huge difference for the flow. So it's not so much that the pressure wasn't there, it's just that there was so much consumed by the diameter of the hose, the friction, if you will, between the water molecules and the hose itself. So by the time you got to the nozzle, which was the last connection before it was spritzing onto the driveway, 3/4 inch hose is the way to go, particularly if you go over 50 feet in length. I wouldn't have a 1/2 inch hose, period. Throw it away. Get yourself a 3/4 inch hose. Or a 1 inch hose if you can stand it. When you coil it up, it's quite a large hose. Anyway, so bandwidth is just like the garden hose. You need to have enough bandwidth in order to get, and like I say, I need 20 megabits per second, million bits per second. Yeah. In order to carry the video. See? Whoops. Producer, give me full screen. There we go. So here I am. I have my cup of coffee. We're sitting around Denny's. You can see Marilyn's chair in the background here. All the way over there. There's her glasses. And she's not here. She's at work. At Seacoast Bank. Yeah. And Jimmy's has his morning coffee with all of you. And there's my little logo right there, which I created 40 years ago. Oh, there it is. Yeah, that's my microphone thingy when we're out in the field interviewing people. Yep, got my little toolkit here. We're in good shape. So, as we chat along here, Marco Rubio is throwing out vibrations saying he's basically out of here if where is that? Yeah, he's not. The Ukrainian issue is not, this whole thing with Putin and Ukraine. And Putin is, he's a finagler. And he's essentially, BSing the world. There we go. This is our elapsed time counter, if you're wondering what that is. In tenths of a frame per second. Since this is being broadcast at like 60 frames per second, I believe, in high definition color. The light is, we can turn the light up just a little bit. There we go. Oh, look at our friendly cat has caught a snake. Amazing thing about cats, they can snap down a snake. It's interesting that a snake's predator is a cat, of all things. It's hard for a snake to bite a cat through its thick coat of hair. And I remember that the predator of a rattlesnake is a black snake. One snake eats the other snake. And the black snake, the indigo snake, as the natives call it down here. Rattlesnakes in Florida, are like baseball bats with a head and a rattler. I mean, I used to go to, I guess it was FAU when I was a teacher. And I took, a class in statistics, which I hated, and a couple other classes, as I continuing ed things for my teaching certificate, taught high school math. And I didn't like statistics; was kind of boring. They would divide one number by another, and they'd call it something, and you had to memorize the name, which was some nonsensical name. And then you had to do this and do that, and then, it's just, I don't know, a bunch of mathematical manipulations of the same numbers to produce, oddball results, and then they'd call it something. And, it's probably a very bad description of what I had to go through, 45 years ago when I was teaching high school math. I did that for a couple of years. And then we got pregnant and had son Lee, and with that added financial responsibility, I had to do something other than teach. There just wasn't enough income. $692 a month. That was my teaching salary. Yep, $692 a month. Ouch. Talk about being at the poverty level, right? How do you live on that? Well, you can't. So I got out of that business. And I went to, I worked with Ed McCluskey and Bill Barnett it was called World Associates, and they had a franchise called Kennedy and Cohen, and they sold washers, dryers, ranges, refrigerators, color TVs, console TVs, Sylvania TVs. You ever hear of that? I don't even know if Sylvania TV, Zenith TV. People come and say, I want that Zenith. Zenith. No, I want that Zenith. You got that Zenith in there? The one you got on sale? Anyway, I was director of operations. We built stores in 4 states or 5 states. Traveled around in Les Byron and Ed McCluskey, had a Saberliner jet. I remember using that a couple times. I mostly flew with Ed in that plane. But then I went to Minnesota a couple times by myself. Maybe there was someone with me. Like a rocket ship. Get that thing and you get up to 40,000 feet and rocket over to Minnesota and come down out of the sky, land that sucker. And the nice thing about it is you don't have to go through all that, the tedious standing in line with airport security and all that. You just have a private terminal. And you have a car waiting for you. I used to meet right in the terminal. I'd have the contractors or whoever I was supposed to meet with in Minnesota. I'd have them come to the airport terminal, And I'd meet him right in there. And have 3 or 4 meetings, an hour apiece, whatever. And then I was done. Then we'd fly to Kansas City and have another couple of meetings. And, fly around, have the meetings in the airport terminals instead of, driving to some other site. Have them come to the terminal. I flew, 1,200 miles to get to you. You can drive, 5 miles to meet me. So that's how that worked. Worked out very nicely. And, one day you could hit 3 different cities. And then you get back home in time for dinner. Or cocktails with the boss and tell him what happened. More likely the scenario. There we go. Just calming down epidemic. Felt like I was competing with epidemic. I like background music, but I don't like it taking over the conversation. Oops, let me check the computer here and see. Yeah, it should be right there. There we go. That should be better. Anyway, so I looked into this school shooting in which, several dead people, unfortunately, and 10 to 12 injured by this stupid kid that's not too sure how this family thing worked. Here's a picture of the kid. Yeah. He will go down in infamy. Yeah, he'll be in a box for a long time. So we have a real mother and I guess a stepmother. His real mother is, I think, in Norway. He's Norwegian, carrying dual passports, dual citizenship. His name is Phoenix Inkner. And his, the way I could, I was speed reading it, but the sheriff, the sheriff deputy, Jessica Inkner, it said like 18 years in the sheriff's department. And her stepson, opens fire, at a major 44,000 student university, terrorizing, so he wasn't talking, according to the police reports. He's taken into custody, and the gun that he shot people with was his stepmother's gun. That's kind of terrible. But I read somewhere, not in this report, not in the CNN report, but in another report, that he was, in a sense, kidnapped by his real mother and taken back to Norway for some period of time, undisclosed period of time, meaning it just wasn't mentioned how long he was in Norway. But he eventually came back somehow. So this, you got some weird stuff going on in the family, which, sometimes will louse up, and obviously before this 10-year-old kidnapping by his natural mother, several years before that. Now, the rest of this I'm making up, but you can imagine, if Mama come grabbed him and dragged him back to Norway, there must have been some family stuff going on for multiple years before that. Remember, I'm making this up, I don't know. But obviously the kid got all screwed up. You have to be all screwed up to go to school and just open fire on a bunch of people just to vent, whatever's going on between the ears. Obviously, there's a short circuit somewhere. Yeah. The human mind computer sometimes does strange things. Moving on, let's get away from that topic. So over the next couple of days and weeks, we'll figure out more about it's a selfie, obviously, in the bathroom somewhere where there was a mirror. You could always take a picture with the phone, but yeah, they do it in the thing so they can see themselves when they snap the button. And yeah, we'll get the lowdown on that after a couple of weeks. Well, everything gets back to normal. For a number of families, it's not going to get back to normal, including this kid's family and step-family and all that. Ugh. So I don't know. Seems like the last name of the stepmom is the same as his last name. So could these two women be sisters? I don't know. It doesn't. I'm not very good at all this genealogy stuff. And who's a cousin and who's an uncle, all that. I think I kind of have it figured out after I turned my 80th birthday. I guess I better figure it out before it's too late. Yeah. Anyway, let's get on to something more. We feel our heartfelt sympathies to the victims of the shooting at Florida State University, a 44,000 student university. I'm on the faculty at FAU, which is a 30,000 student university. It's big, I have a classroom. I have a key to a classroom on the third floor, building 54. I mean, you had hundreds of buildings, This building, that building. I'm in the College of Science. Thank you, John Harlan, for helping me become adjunct faculty at FAU since 2003. Wow. That's 22 years ago. Yeah, wrote a book, got it published by Pearson Education. Principles of Digital Photography and Post-Image Processing. That's a P word. Yeah. Students really liked the class. It's good today. I wrote it. I literally wrote this stuff chapter by chapter. I would take a tool like the clone stamp tool in Photoshop, and I would literally, I had a iPad with a keyboard, and as I would do things, I would type it out, exactly what I was doing. You go here, you get this, you go there, you get that, you slide this thing left or right, I would take pictures or do print screen of some of the things I was talking about because it was difficult to describe, in words. So when they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So there's a lot of print screen pictures, which I edited, and we used arrows and circled this and highlighted that, and so chapter 1 was this tool, chapter 2 was the level tools, chapter 3 was the crop tool. And I basically had it in not 100% order, but in the likely order of the most often used tools that I used, and I was a digital photography proficient photographer. I took pictures, FAU sports. Between Marilyn and myself, we have over 50,000 pictures of just FAU football home games. 30, 40 home games. I lost count of how many. You can count them. You can go to my website and look them up. 416-1100.com. 416-1100.com, and you can see the pictures. I can actually show this to you if you want. Whoops, not there. This is my home screen, and I have an icon right here. I'm going to put my finger on it and wiggle it. You can see where my finger is, and it's my logo. This right here. There's an icon right over there. It looks like that. I made it up somehow. I can't exactly remember how I did that, but I got that picture used as the icon. And so now I'm going to touch that with my finger because it's a touch screen. Bingo. See, from the very top, 416-1100.com. There we are. And this is a little notification from my host at SmugMug. You see up in the very upper left corner it says SmugMug. If you can see that, barely. I guess you can't. Anyway, smugmug.com. You can go there. You can sign up, and the sign up means is it gives you a place to put your photographs. Now they're digital photographs because film is almost unavailable anymore. Everything on here is digital photography. Look at that shot, polo. Very difficult shot. I got lucky. That's what that's called. That was taken February 7th. No, this was, I'd have to, let's just touch that image and see when that was. There we go. This was, February 25th, 2007, at around 3 p.m., the C.V. Whitney Cup quarterfinals of the International Polo Club in Palm Beach. These international polo organizations, this is the sport of the super wealthy. Because you have to have, like 30 or 40 horses. Because, a rider would go over to the sidelines and change horses and get on another horse, keep the same mount in his hand and run back out on the field, during a 30-second timeout. These riders, it's a special breed of horses. They're short-legged. You can probably tell from the picture that the horses, they're very strong and they're capable of, making quick turns and hard stops and all this. If you rode a regular horse and tried that, the horse would probably drop to the ground. Look at this horse, he's completely off the ground. Well, this guy's trying to hit that ball. And these riders, they're capable of manipulating that. See the ball right there? It's in the air. The horse is in the air. And he's holding on tight. And this guy, they're all chasing the same ball, right? Trying to hit it through a net. It's very exciting, thing to see. And it's a feast for a photographer. So now I'm going to hit the back button because we're talking about FAU sports. So this is the home page on my website. Health and wellness creates great images. How about that? You want to contact us? You hit that contact us button and then you can send a message. It goes right to 416.1100@gmail.com. That's my email address. I get lots of people. We're going to cancel that. I just wanted to show you that. You hit the go home button, takes you back here. We're already home. I wrote 700 or 800 articles. Visit our popular FAU for You blog site. And anyway, so there's Marilyn with Jay Leno. How about that? That's pretty cool, huh? I remember that shot, like I took it last weekend. But it's older than that. Let's touch that image. If I touch that image, it's going to go right to the gallery. Where was it? Oh, there it is. Look at that. And this is a car show that Jay Leno was. It's a Boys and Girls Club. See that right there in the middle? Boys and Girls Clubs of Broward County. BGCBC.org. Boys, Girls Club, Broward County. Yep. It's hard to say, but so on page of his Rolls Royce, they got all kinds of taking pictures of, the hood ornaments, and there's Marilyn with one of her friends. You can see, I would call that a money shot. Got two attractive ladies, and there you see the Boca Hotel in the background there, which tells you, you try to take pictures that tell a story. So you know right away where that picture was taken. If you're familiar with, local architecture, that's the tallest building in Boca Raton. That pinkish colored building. It's a marvelous restaurant at the top floor. This is just an attractive young lady with feathers in her hair. You see the feathers in the back of her hair. I have no clue who she is. There's another couple attractive ladies. This is a car show where the cars are worth, millions of dollars a piece. Yeah, it's a very ritzy. You want to go in there, it costs you $200 for a pass to go in there and look at cars. We were photographers, so we got press passes. There's Marilyn, Jimmy, and Jay Leno. He's saying, "Okay, take your picture and let me go." And there we go. There's Marilyn with her friends. There's yours truly and Marilyn. This is the number of You can see the number of car shows I've been. You see on the rim of my hat, all those pins represents the years. You know, we've taken pictures there for 10 or 15 years. There's a special Rolls Royce. You can have one of your very own for $350,000 or whatever it all costs. There's an attractive lady. That's a privately owned jet. And she was getting in the plane or getting out of the plane at this, private airport in Boca Raton. And I said, hey, want me to take a picture of you? So I did. I sent it to them, sent a link, and they bought, $30 or $40 worth of pictures of themselves. This is going into the event. And this is some magazine covers of prior years that someone had laid out on the grass, as you can see. So I just snapped the picture. Look at that gold hood ornament. You can only drive that around in certain places because people will snap that off and steal it. There's the inside of a Rolls Royce. You can see the RR in the middle of the steering wheel. I'd rather drive my Tesla, quite frankly. It also shows off some antique. There's a 1949, see that T100 I guess a Triumph motorcycle. These are all beautifully restored, perfectly running motorcycles. 1959 T100. Everything is perfectly polished, and this one got a ribbon for some reason because it was better than all the rest in that category, according to a team of experts that walked around and graded these things by some kind of a measure. There's a BMW motorcycle with a side doodad. If you're that's Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, if you ever heard of one, right? Oh yeah, this skinny little bike. Probably 100 years old. But anyway, look at that, a single cylinder. Look how beautifully polished every little piece is. And a single spark plug wire. These things all operate. You can start them up. They start right up. This is one of the boys club servers. Attractive young lady. There's some more people that work in the event. We had a little, I guess, pink champagne. So you can see there, along the back edge of that tent is food preparers. The best places in Boca Raton would set up, their food. It was, you had to have a special ticket to enjoy this food preparation. It's like, like $275 for the day, included $100 bonus to the organizers to get these restaurants to, and they produce the finest things, these, steaks and shrimps and scallops, and you get a little cup of just some magnificent Italian something or other. Yeah, there's someone sitting at the table. a glass of wine or something. And you see the little fence that's kind of fenced off this area from the rest of the public that only paid $175 a ticket to walk around and look at the, and carry your cup of coffee or your foo-foo juice of some sort. Yep. They didn't have big fences. It was a little picket fence. You didn't have, these are very upper class people, and they would not hop the fence. No. You go through the gate and show your armband or something. There's the cars parading up. This one had a ribbon, see? Anyway, I'm just showing you some pictures at 416alonerunner.com, and I was trying to get down. Look at that pretty young gal at FAU events. You touch on any of these pictures, and it goes to a whole number of galleries that have to do with executive portfolios. There's Marilyn, and images for iPhone photo classes. See that tent? I took that picture in Milwaukee. And there's a stage event. That fellow should be familiar to many. Today he's a world-class performer. And this was taken 10 or 15 years before he was super famous. There, see FAU Sports. So we're going to touch this icon. Bingo. And then it takes you, let's go to FAU football. So you got football, basketball, swim, soccer. Unbelievable. There's tennis, softball, baseball, golf, and the FAU cheer and dance. Look at that spectacular young lady. Wow. She was world-class looking young lady. I took a number of pictures. I mean, she was so striking in my view. Anyway, caught the photographer's eye. All right, FAU football. We're going to snap on that one. And it's going to pull up. There you go. Here. So, any one of these pictures, you touch on it, and you get that whole game. Like FAU football versus Marshall. 6:30 p.m. October 18, 2019 at the Boca Stadium. Or, every one of these is good. I mean, this football coach should be well known to people that do football. I'm not one of them. I take pictures. But that coach is, FAU had him for a couple of years, and then I think Ole Miss grabbed him. Paid them millions of dollars to leave FAU and go there. These coaches bounce around until they get paid comfortably. Anyway, there was a lot of winning games with this coach. And, Marilyn and I were on the field taking pictures at different spots on the field. So look at that picture. I mean, that's he's got his note thing in his hand, and he's got his arms up, looking at the referee, saying, "What did you just call? Get over here and explain that to me." Yeah, he was I thought he was a spectacular showman on the field anyway. And he got the players in his, it's always a matter of who you're surrounded with. He was hard to photograph, but boy, when when you could grab him when you could see him on the side of the field, and he just faced you in the right way, and bam, you snap that picture. These are all digital photographs, obviously. Any one of them, so obviously I like this one. So you can touch on that picture, and it will go there. You can see now that's a big one. Yeah, and then you can download it for free. So here's my there's my cat sitting on my camera bag while I'm going through my devices. Isn't that funny? Yeah, he's sitting right there on the dining room table, watching me. There was some commotion at that part of the field. Florida Atlantic team. Here we are. Someone just made a touchdown. This is all on the side of the field, standing right next to all the players. What's my rough picture? Here we are. The cheerleaders are jumping up and down. I mean, these guys practice all week long to play a game, on Saturday. Anyway, so that's my website. There are literally 400,000 pictures in about 36 different categories. Yep. This is Marco Rubio. A picture I captured on the internet at 7:56 this morning, just before the big show. But that's how I keep track of what I want to talk about. Here's pain pills and taking them the proper way. It tells you how to take the pills right on the bottle. But what happens is sometimes these medications, you had a surgery or something. So you, on your back, let's just say, I'm moving my back around. Everything hurts when you get to be 80. Put your shoulders back and move left or right. Your shoulders hurt, your back hurts. I mean, not serious pain, but it feels like, I was just in a football practice yesterday. And, I feel like I'm still bruised from which is not true. Just sleeping in bed, Anyway, Nate Silver, has a striking prediction based on polling results. He's been one of the very, I won't say the most accurate, but up there in the very high percentage of accurate predictors of election results. Nate Silver. You can go to natesilver.com and look up his stuff. He moved from one entity to another for some reason or other. So you have to find him and track his results. He's a very accurate predictor of results. This is a good shot of Marco Rubio, actually. A former senator from the state of Florida, who is now Secretary of State. Wow. That's, you got the president, vice president, and, he's like third or fourth in line to the presidency. President, Vice President, Speaker of the House, I think, and then Secretary of State. He's like fourth in line to the presidency, so that's serious. Hopefully we never get to, having to execute that part of the Constitution. The Constitution, I happen to have a copy of it right here. Whoops. Next to my lottery ticket, which I have to find out if it's worth anything other than scrap paper. Get that back there. There's a whole United States Constitution. It took me a while to find this, and guess what? They sent it to me. Turning Point USA. You see that right there? And he sent me this book. He says, put it in your pocket. Put it in your pocket, young man. It's the Constitution and all the amendments. And one neat little thing, it's that thin. It's not Bible print. I mean, you can read that. You can almost read it here. The middle fold is Article 4 of the Constitution. Anyway, I bookmark it when anyone starts talking about something constitutional. I go, look it up and read the Constitution. Now, there's a lot of Supreme Court, there's a lot of legislative court history, if you will, relating to every sentence in the Constitution. The Supreme Court reads the sentence over and over again. What did the framers, what were they thinking when they wrote that sentence? And remember, they didn't have typewriters back then, and they didn't have word processors. So every sentence in the Constitution is very carefully framed because they have to handwrite it. And they don't want to, So after everyone, the Continental Congress or whatever, the original framers of the Constitution, the authors, 20 of them, 10 or 20, depending on what they were talking about. Different framers were interested in different parts, or more interested in certain parts. And, so you had different crowds of people that were interested in a number of the segments of the Constitution. So, and it wouldn't always be the same people. Anyway, so there's a lot of case law, if you will, about what the framers actually meant by this section, this paragraph, this amendment, whatever, So the reason why I have Mr. Tim Cook, you see me, I'm shaking him. The reason why I have Tim Cook as a central feature, he's holding up his iPhone 16 Pro Max phone that came off the same factory line. I happen to have one of my very own right here. There you go. You see the three lenses, the characteristic three lenses, and that little white dot, which is the flash LED. When you need flash, you need extra light to light up your picture. It's very good at available light. I mean, I have unbelievable pictures, of sunrises and moonrises, and you see the craters on the frickin' moon, taking it with a stupid iPhone. I mean, how crazy is that? Gosh, I have a bracket. Which I've assembled. I should see it right here. It's not that big. It weighs about a pound. But you can put your phone in this bracket that's spring-loaded, and then there's a clamp on the other side, Whoops. Sorry. There's a little thumb knob which you can see, which you can turn to tighten it up. But that gives you, so this is, yeah, made by Newer. You see Newer? It's a bracket that holds an iPhone. So now you hold it with the handles instead of fidgeting around holding, the phone, which is fine. But if you really want to take real steady movies, or, and you can tap the phone, because it would be right here. You can have an external microphone you can put up in this bracket part, which the microphones are really quite good. You really don't need to do that. So this is a really nifty way, if you know you're going to take pictures of an event, a birthday party or whatever, and you have one of these brackets, and you're carrying an iPhone, it makes you look like you know what the hell you're doing. Yeah. Put that bracket down there, out of harm's way. Like on July 4th, there's a fireworks display, and put the iPhone in the bracket, and you can take nice videos of the fireworks display. I've taken some I should say the iPhone has captured marvelous fireworks display videography. It's just breathtaking. It's like you had the finest studio cameras, and it's with an iPhone. Standing right here on the 8th floor of my balcony, watching the display produced by the Boca Hotel Resort and Club. They set up the fireworks stuff in the driving range of the golf course of the Boca Hotel, which is a big enough area that they can cordon off so that if there would ever be an accident of some sort, people would be sheltered from, any misfires, if you will. Anyway, getting back to Tim Cook. Anyway, so the iPhone is quite amazing. It'd be interesting. Every year I say, how could they possibly improve the device where it would motivate me to get a new one every year. And the way the phone is right now is so spectacular. I'm trying to figure out what the hell could they possibly, how could they seduce me into getting another one? We have a special program with AT&T where, I should say AT&T has a special program which we take advantage of. We've almost taken advantage of it almost every year. Anyway, the program is that, let's say the device cost, $1,500 or $1,600. So, and their deal is, they take the $1,600 and divide it by 36, and that's your monthly payment, and there's no interest. So let's just say it's $1,650. You divide that by 36, boom, you pay $45.83 a month. That's your monthly payment. There's no interest charge. So why would you pay $1,650 if you can let AT&T pay the price to acquire the phone? They hand you the phone, they send it to you, and then you pay $45 a month. And at the end of the year, every year, not you can, at any point in time after a year, you have to go at least 12 months. So on month 12 or month 13, when they come out with the new phone, you can turn in the old one and get a new one, and they just reset the payment based on the price of the new one, divided by 36, and you send back the old one, and they just forgive that contract and replace with a new contract. That's so, and you pay $5 a month to have the privilege of doing that, if you feel like it. Otherwise, you just pay the $45 a month installment, if you will, but there's no interest. So that makes it like, why would you not do that? You know, there's usually like an interest charge, which would then motivate you. You know, maybe you don't want to trade in that asset for a new asset because you're being assessed an interest charge of some number based on the principal balance of a $1,600 phone. You know, so even at, 5%, let's do that math real quick. So $1,650 times 0.0, let's just say it's 5% interest. That's 5%, 0.05, right? Equals, and divide that by 12, because that's a year. So it'd be like $7 a month interest on top of the 42, which makes, so, or 45, that makes it $52 or $53 a month. So that would be the disincentive if there was an interest charge, because you'd be paying, $53 a month for something that really should be $45 a month. And that interest charge is the reason why you wouldn't, trade up to the new phone, because every year you're paying $70 or $80 worth of interest, which would be the disincentive for trading the phones. But there's no interest charge. It's zero. So, you shouldn't pay the $1,650. Just pay the $45 a month. And, if you keep the phone for 3 years, so then you've basically paid off the phone with no interest charge. And the phone is all yours. And, 100% owned by you. As opposed to having a phone with a lien on it, so to speak. I don't know how there's wording in the documentation which you can read if you feel like it. But they have the ability to stop the phone, essentially foreclose the phone, because it's a loan, with no interest. It's a contract which you electronically sign. So you have to pay the sales tax on the phone when you start the contract, because they don't finance the sales tax. They just finance the asset. So you pay the $70 or $80 worth of sales tax, and then the $45 a month. And one time on the sales tax, and then it's just $45 a month thereafter for a $1,650 phone. And the interesting thing will be this September is how has Tim Cook negotiated the deal with the Tim Cook said, I'm going to build $500 billion worth of plants in the United States, assembly into the United States, with the United States workers, moving it from China to the USA. So I want a break. God damn it. Leave that part out. Pardon me. It's Easter week. Good Friday. Don't use God's name in vain. Sorry. I take it back. I'm just being a wise guy. Anyway, so Tim Cook. Now, the reason why his picture is there is photo credit for Getty Images, which means someone else took the picture and Getty bought it. Apple is preparing a significant upgrade to its health app. So it has a health app, and it's connected to your Apple Watch. I happen to have one on my wrist right here. And while you're wearing a watch all day long, remember years ago, if there was something wrong with you, you go to the doctor's office, and he said, you need to wear this, or you need to wear that. It's an electronic thing that saves data, and then we'll examine the data, and, we'll find out whether your heart is ticking right, or your body temperature is, The watch tracks all that. It's on your wrist. You wear it all day long. But there's I'll take this off. There's things on the back of the watch. You see all these sensors? Yeah. There's sensors, reflectors. Look at that. Oh, look at it. There's 8 different sensors and reflectors that are attached to the back of your wrist, the top of your wrist, if you will, all day long. And periodically, like every minute or every whatever, depending on what it's tracking, it tracks your body temperature. If it starts to go up or down, beyond a certain reasonable limit, it doesn't tell you necessarily 98.6. It's just saying, this is your normal body temperature. And they plot a thing on a graph. And then they say, okay, at this time, you went up a half a degree over your typical average. Or you went down a half a degree or a whole degree. And it shows you this wavy graph showing you when and how much your body temperature changed during a given day, week, month, whatever. And it tracks every 5 minutes. It's snapping, a temperature. There's a temperature sensor in the watch. And anyway, that's a new item that was added. But see, now what Tim Cook is saying with his engineers is they are taking advantage of this AI-based, artificial intelligence-based agent that will serve as a kind of personal doctor in your pocket, according to a report by Mark Gurman from Bloomberg. And these guys, they follow around these Apple engineers all over the planet. These Bloomberg people and others, like Mark. And they write articles all the time. And this article is them talking about how they're going to be using this artificial intelligence capability of the watch and the iPhone and the entire Apple ecosystem, so that they are going to be digging through the knowledge of the entire planet, because this AI, this artificial intelligence algorithm, can go into the internet and search everything to find out what's going on with Jimmy's pulse and compare it to the knowledge base of the entire planet. And what Apple has done is they have contracted with a number of very important medical professionals. And they talk about, whatever, let's say, my issue happens to be. And they'll have a video that a world-renowned doctor has determined about whatever my condition is, that the data that's streaming in through the Apple Watch, and they film a clip, of this doctor who looks at you, into a TV screen, and he says, Jimmy, and tells you about what your medical condition is. All kinds of conditions. I'm just making one up about the heart because I had bypass surgery, and the heart's working fine, so far, after 6.5 years of renewed life, if you will, because it was a killer. But it didn't work. My doctors fixed me after 10 hours of surgery and quadruple bypass. The doctor told me a couple of weeks after the surgery, you go in and visit with the surgeon, the head surgeon, Dr. Philip Bethay. Dr. Bethay, so how did the surgery go? He said, Jimmy, it was a marvelous surgery. The first two, and I can remember, it's like, of course they look at the charts and all this, and they just did the surgery 2 weeks ago, and this was 6 years ago. And anyway, so he said, but 2 of those bypasses were real tricky. I had to use a gauge 5 or instead of a gauge 8 artery, whatever, smaller gauge, in order to make it work. And he said, well, we got it all worked up there. Took a little time, I had a team of people that helped me with it. And, yes. I mean, I'm sure if you saw a video of that, it would scare you to death. Bypass surgery is serious business. They put a paddle on your heart that's refrigerated. There's a refrigerant that gets passed through this little paddle, that's no bigger than a silver dollar, with a special surface on it, if you will, so that it doesn't stick to your heart. The silicone, I don't know. But it's chilled. So they chill the heart to slow it down. So they can actually perform the surgery when the heart is pumping slow. They can't stop the heart because then you're dead. You got to keep the blood moving a little bit, and so they perform this bypass, and the heart is beating, 2 or 3 times, like every other second instead of every half second. But they slow it down quite a bit. So after they do that, and they get one of the bypasses done, then they got to take the chilling paddle away from the heart so the heart can warm back up again and beat normally. And they give the heart, I was going to say breathing room, but pumping room, and the heart is warmed back up. So they... meanwhile, they cut your body open like a Christmas turkey, right? They cut open the middle of your chest and crank it open so they can get to the heart. Oh, gosh. Anyway, so they cover that up, and then they go work on another patient, and they give your heart a rest. Well, they're working on someone else. And then it's time to go, and then the alarm goes off. Time to get back to Jimmy and do the next bypass. Maybe they give your heart 30-minute breathing room, if you will, or pumping room. And they do the next one. Oh boy. Anyway, so if you happen to have survived such surgery, I should make a button. I'm a bypass surgery survivor. Yeah, because it's not 100%. Some patients don't make it for some reason. There's always a reason. Operation was a success, but the patient died. Why? Well, you can die from the anesthesia. That's almost a killer itself. The anesthesia is terribly, vitally important. So you want to have the best anesthesiologist because of the drugs they have to give you are very careful dosages, drip into your IV type thing. And if your vital signs get a little bit too low, they slow the drip down. You know, I mean, it's biochemistry to the highest order. Anyway, if you've had that kind of a surgery, you're very interested in all your vital signs and all the tracking of your blood sugar and your blood oxygen and this and that, and your pulse and your sleep patterns, and you know, all these things that the watch can keep track of. You know, it's hundreds of things in exquisite detail. Like, you know, there's constant monitoring because you got the watch on all the time. You know, fine, I can see what time of day it is, and oh yeah, I gotta put my password in when I took it off. So I can see my battery in my Tesla is 80%. The little blue bar, see that? Yeah. 89% is my fuel tank is at 89% of full capacity. Yeah. You can see it on your watch. I mean, you know, it's like crazy, the technology today. You know, the car's 8-10 miles away in Maryland's parking lot, and it's sitting there, and it's communicating with my watch to tell me how much energy it has in the fuel tank. I'd rather call it a fuel tank, you know, because instead of gallons of gasoline, I've got kilowatts of electricity. I mean, it's like a different thing. So after driving the car for 5 years, and we've been driving Tesla cars for 5 years, we're on our second one. The first one we did on a 3-year lease, turned it in, and then got another brand new one in March 18th of 2024 with all the updated, most modern stuff that's stuffed into a Tesla, which is the most spectacular car you will ever have. So, we've driven them all, you know, the best Mercedes and the best BMWs and the best Lexus. Lexus was actually my favorite of all of them. It was RX450H, which was 8 or 10 years ago. My son is a sales manager of Tesla. He can tell you what year. I actually don't recall. It has to be, like 10 years ago. But I thought it was the most spectacular car I've ever ridden. You know, it was a hybrid. And Tesla's best hybrid, because the Lexus is the most advanced car that the car company can make. It's the bee's knees, if you will, of the Japanese technology. Anyway, when you drive the Tesla, woo! No, we've never owned a Bentley or a Rolls Royce, because I always thought those, and there was a time in my life cycle, you know, of careers and financial capacity, I could have had one if I wanted it, but you know, to me it was, you know, such an obvious, you know, in your face, I'm financially capable person. I just couldn't do it. I didn't want to do it. I'd rather just drive. You know, driving a Mercedes or a BMW is in your face enough that I'm financially capable. But Rolls-Royce, Bentley, you know, Maserati, no. I just, number one, you know, you drive here and drive there. You know, cars didn't mean that much. I like, you know, the nicer cars and the comfort, the creature comfort features of a fine car. And the engineering, I'm an engineer type person, so I've been taking stuff apart since I'm 10 years old, so, and putting them back together and making them work better. How about that? At a young age, clocks. When clocks were could be pretty complicated. I had to take them apart, lubricate them, put them back together again. Yep. Not many people at 10 do that. You know, it's Elon Musk type crazy stuff. Anyway, I appreciate fine engineering of fine automobiles, but I just drive from here to there. I don't. I used to change the oil in the oil filters. I had a Mercedes diesel, and every 5,000 miles or every 3,000 miles, so you had to change the oil, which was like black. Like, the engines run so hot, I think. The oil was all burnt, so you had to change the oil because it was like consuming the oil in a sense. You know, it'd burn it and ruin the oil capacity of lubricating after a while. It wasn't thick, but it was black. You get that stuff on your hands, it'd take you 10 minutes to wash, it out of your skin. The black was so intense. It was like ink. That's what I remember from doing. In the 70s when I had a Mercedes 300D diesel car, white with blue interior. Yeah, as a banker, I rode to work in a Mercedes diesel. Yeah, that was about as much shaming as I could take, because the other bankers would look at me like saying, "What the hell is this guy doing?" It was considered like driving up in a Rolls Royce, but I wasn't. Yeah, it was like 1/3 the price. But really, you're coming to work in a Mercedes Benz as a bank person? But I was a senior bank person, and I liked it. Screw it, I don't give a crap what you think. But you had to deal with that. As a peer pressure kind of a thing. As you're a adult, 35 years old, I had to worry about what people think about what kind of car I'm driving. The hell with them. I won't put my name tag on until I get in the building. Anyway, so we've driven all the nice cars, through my life cycle. And 6 years ago, after studying it for 4, so that's 10 years of history with Tesla. They've only been in business for 12 years. In their first 2 years, they almost went bankrupt twice. And Elon kept on pumping in billions. Right, billions? No, tens of millions. I get mixed up with the billions and the millions. You get enough millions, it adds up to be real money. But anyway, Elon put in another $20 or $30 million worth of his own cash into Tesla to keep it alive, because it only had 2 weeks left of money, or else all the people working there wouldn't get paid. I worked for companies where this guy said, "Hey, you mind if I give you your paycheck next week instead of this week?" Because they ran out of money. That was earlier in my life cycle. Anyway, so I know what that's like. So Elon, he wanted to make sure all his people would get paid. All the bills would get paid. So he just went out of pocket and put another $20 million in Tesla to keep it alive, so it could get over the hump for that weak part of its life cycle in the early 2 years of Tesla. Anyway, it got through that, and today it's a magnificent company. Wow. If you can possibly take 30 minutes of your life, let's say 40 minutes of your life, and go to YouTube, go to the YouTube channel through your internet capabilities, and do a search for the Tesla tour of its factory. Just type that in the search engine of the search engine of the YouTube channel, and they have a video there that goes an hour or so. You don't have to watch it all if you don't want to. And there's this guy, this interviewer, that's sitting with either sitting or walking. Matter of fact, I think they were walking. And the guy probably had an iPhone recording a video. Because you could see some little jiggle. And he had it in a frame like I just showed you. And he's walking through the plant with Elon. And Elon's there. He's pointing here and he's pointing there. And this factory is like, I mean, it's like out of, the future. The floors, you wipe your finger on the floor, there's no dust. Everything is clean, and there's not oil running around. You don't have pots of ugly this or that. I mean, and the automation with this robotics. I mean, this is a robotic company. 96 or 95% of the Tesla is assembled, welded, screwed together, painted, polished, everything you can think of. 95% robotics, and only 5% human intervention with the manufacture of, like, the Model Y car, which I'm driving now. And they build a Model Y. A Model Y comes out the back door of a Tesla factory every 40 seconds. Every 40 seconds, you look at your watch, another Model Y comes out of the back of the factory, and it drives itself to its assigned parking place out in the field, in the parking lots, all over the place. It has an assigned spot. So because that's the car that I ordered. And it's going to get self-driven to another place when it's time to load it up on the trailer to drive to Boca Raton from, Austin, Texas. But the car drives itself out of the plant because, remember, it's a self-driving car. Or it has the self-driving software, which will start to be adopted by major cities all over the country, state by state, city by city. And Elon says by the end of the year, almost all jurisdictions will have approved Tesla's self-driving car. And so what does that mean? That means that you put in the address of where you want to go, and it'll take you there. It'll make all the turns, it'll make all the stops, it'll get on the highway, get off the highway. It doesn't matter whether the destination is 5 minutes away or 5 hours away or whatever. It'll take you from where you are to whatever address you put in the navigator. That's what they call it. So you either you can say where you want to go, and then it'll come up with, the computer will then, the car's computer will come up with a few alternatives of what the computer thinks you said. And the top one is usually the right response, but it may have misunderstood you, or it may have slurred a little bit or whatever. So in case you didn't speak clearly, which you don't have to speak any more clearly than my conversational tone right here, you just tell the car where you want to go, and it'll take you there. That is coming to Southern California and Texas, in June. And then, July, August, months, weeks and months thereafter. I know they've been in contact with Florida, for example. Tractor trailers that have the self-driving feature is approved on highways all over the state of Florida. The DOT through the governor's office has approved Tesla self-driving tractor trailers for highway use. So now, Florida, as an entire state, is likely going to be approving Tesla self-driving. I mean, I've used the self-driving software, and the latest version of it is, quite stunning in its ability to take you from A to B and make left-hand turns, which is the most complicated issue probably facing a Tesla computer-driven car, because the cameras have to look left and right. Of course, it sees everything simultaneously, wherein you have to turn your head back and forth and back and forth, to make sure you have an open spot that you can slide yourself in the traffic pattern. And that's what the computer does. It's noticing what's going on left and right and in the front of you and in the back of you, and anybody that could just run up in front of you. And the cameras are constantly vigilantly noticing all these things at the same time. And then at the particular moment where you can slide in the traffic and make a successful left-hand turn without, hitting anything, it'll do it. And it does it, in a speed and in a pattern that you would likely do if you were driving it. Earlier versions, the most earlier version than this version, which was version 11 instead of version 12, it was too nervous and jerky, and it would power turn, in left turns. It just drove more aggressively than I think a human would drive, unless you've had too many cups of coffee, where you're really, it was too, so the earlier versions were too aggressive for my liking, so I didn't use it, but now it's smoothed out. It's really, it drives the car like a human, or at least how I would drive the car. So version 13.4 or whatever it is a spectacular improvement over all the earlier versions of the Tesla Autopilot. I mean, they've been trying to get this properly operating in the car for 4 or 5 years, and the problem is, why is it taking that long? One could ask, is they changed their mind. Tesla, the company, and Elon had a big meeting. This is an oversimplification of what actually happened, probably. But they had a meeting, and Elon and the Tesla senior software engineers all sat in a conference room and argued about their software over a period of time, and they decided, you know what, we need to do this. We need to start over. This has gotten too, it's way out of hand. Let's just do this neural network. Let's just take it to the next level and do it right now. So they actually started over. So that was an 18-month delay just getting this whole neural network type operation, whatever that means, which I actually don't know what it means, other than a new vocabulary word. It means a whole lot to a software engineer, which I'm not privy to modern day software engineering. I was a coder in my earlier life, but not using the type of coding that they're currently using for the Teslas. I could figure it out if they had a training module. I could go through it and do it, but I don't choose to spend my time with that at 80 years old, sitting in my 8th floor apartment talking to you right now. I'd rather talk to you than go through software engineering in Tesla, because they're not gonna take any of my recommendations anyway, so why bother? Anyway, so the software has been advanced, so it's up and better than it was 18 months ago when they were doing the software a totally different way. So in June, which, this is mid-April, a little past mid-April, so you got May and the rest of April, in 8 weeks, let's say, that would make it mid-June. They're releasing their final version of their, so then it would be full self-driving, and they'd remove the word supervised, because you would no longer have to supervise it. It will just do it. So you could sit in the driver's seat of your car, your Tesla car, and put the address in where you want to go, or just turn on the autopilot in the middle of where you were driving, and it will keep you on the highway because it won't make turns because you haven't told it where you're going, so to speak. And you could, read a book, take a nap, and the car will self-drive and keep it, until it runs out of juice, which it'll chime and warn you, and it'll probably exit a highway and pause, waiting for you to make a decision on, where you want to, fill up the fuel tank. I'd rather use a word like fuel tank than battery, because, battery, but, what the heck? You have a fuel tank with gasoline and you got a battery? That's too much of a... So I'd rather call the place where you put all your gasoline as the fuel tank, and the place where you put all your kilowatts into your fuel tank. And what the hell is the difference? What kind of fuel it is, other than the obvious implications for the earth and our atmosphere and exhaust fumes and all that, because we're poisoning ourselves, and I'm not a greenie, but, let's face it, if you've been behind a tractor trailer that's operating on diesel fuel, and that guy pushes down on the accelerator pedal because, all of a sudden it's a green light, you see that huge plume of black soot, smoke, gases that are being pumped into our atmosphere, and then I'm breathing this atmosphere. I mean, come on. Smog is basically exhaust fumes that are just blanketed a whole city, and you're breathing this, and you can't wear a mask to filter it out because it's like dissolved into the atmosphere and it gets in your body and just causes all kinds of cancers. Yeah. So I fully believe in the sustainability of automobile transportation using, kilowatts instead of gasoline, which is aka isooctane, if you will, a fractional distillation product of oil that's pumped out of the ground. It serves a purpose, it produces all kinds of lubricants and all kinds of plastic bottles and things. All that's made out of, the oil that's pumped out of the ground during this fractional distillation process. And then you take, those oil compounds and do other things to them, and you end up with a polyethylene jug, which is a perfectly safe place to store water, milk, whatever you want to put in it. Anyway, Apple phone is now using Apple's artificial intelligence, AI. Apple Intelligence is using the advanced programming tools that have basically been available to companies for decades. All programming that has been done in the history of mankind is artificial intelligence. Come on. You have a thermostat hanging on your wall. I have a digital thermostat made by Nest, N-E-S-T. Okay? And it is just packed with artificial intelligence. What does that mean? Well, you set the thermostat to 72 degrees. All right? And for example, I don't care if you're in a hot part of the planet or a cold part of the planet. The Nest thermostat is going to use its artificial intelligence to determine when your furnace comes on to heat the air, because it's now 68 and you want it at 72, and the furnace will heat your ambient air so that you're nice and comfortable in your in your place, where your dwelling unit. Okay? And if in the summertime, your dwelling unit starts to increase in temperature over 73 or 4 degrees, it'll automatically activate your air conditioning system to cool the air so that the resultant ambient air in your dwelling unit is around 72, where you set it with your fingers turning a dial on the Nest thermostat. All of that is programming algorithms that handles the temperature of the ambient air in your dwelling unit. I'm using vocabulary words that will apply to all kinds of apartments and houses and whatever. We'll just call it a dwelling unit. Room by room. I designed an 8,000 square foot house. Literally, I hand drew this house, on a planning table. Used these real fine little tapes that you could buy in a computer graphics place, and created several pages of plans for this house. And then I took it to a local contractor in Tampa, and this gentleman that just got this computer-aided design, this CAD, computer-aided design, and he imaged the plans that I hand drew, which before CAD, everything was hand drawn. So my grandfather was hand drawing, in his basement. He made, literally with a metal lathe, he made the first portable typewriter for the Underwood Company, as a mechanical engineer. How about that? Bet you didn't know that, huh? Anyway, so I drew plans for this house. This gentleman that just was working for this contractor in Tampa, he put this whole design into the CAD system. So it redrew my drawings and matched up the different, drawings, because you'd have a page for the electrical system, and you have a page for the walls and all this stuff, and then you'd have a page for the elevations, front, left, right, rear elevation, big screen enclosure. All this stuff was fed into the computer-aided design, and it would make sure everything matched up one page to the next, so that when you assembled the house, it all assembled properly. Depending on whether you were an electrician or a masonry person. And when you're a masonry person, you have to make sure that there's a provision, in the masonry for this electrical outlet that is waterproof out in the pool area. All that kind of stuff. I don't know. I hand drew it, but this had to go through the electrical plan, had to go through the masonry plans. You have 20 or 30 pages of a plan set, depending on the complexity of what you're building. Anyway, he took the time to put my hand drawings into a CAD system, and he had to make certain adjustments to have things line up and so forth. Because I hand drew this, with rulers and stuff, but, how accurate can that be? Well, with a CAD system, the computer would make sure everything lines up. It wouldn't allow you to have it not line up. It would come up with an alarm. So it took them a week or two to get it in there properly. And then they bid out the job, and we had a big meeting to build a house. And I had the loan all approved. It cost like $800,000 to build this house. This is, in 1990 or something like that. Plus or minus 3 years. I don't want to waste the time figuring it out, but it was in that time period. Yep. Moved to Tampa in 82, and moved out in 90, so it had to be somewhere, in the late 80s. Okay? 80, like 86, let's just say that. And we sat down with this big meeting with myself and Marilyn, and I had already obtained the loan in sufficient amount to build the house, interest, 18-month term, all that kind of stuff, and then graduated into a 30-year, amortized. I should have done the loan, actually. If hindsight, it's 2020, because I had it all figured out, and financially, and it would have been a magnificent place. I backed out. I got scared. Because there's a lot of money, and I figured, darn it, let's just stay where we are. And the contracting firm was so disappointed that we didn't have this big meeting. I mean, we had the big meeting, but we didn't. I said, gentlemen, can we excuse Marilyn and myself? We're going to go out in the hallway and speak privately for a moment. I'll be right back. So I went out in the hallway and I said, Marilyn, I'm just getting cold feet. Let's just delay this. Let's not sign this contract right now. And she said, okay. And I said, so you can go home. You're excused. So I came back in by myself, and I sat down and I had a long conversation with the contractors, the guy that owned the firm, and I think his name is Terry, the guy that actually created the computer-aided design. I said, look, give me a bill for the time and effort you've taken to this point, and I'll pay that. Right now I'll write you a check, or next week, or whenever you give me the final bill, because Terry did all this CAD design work, and I said I want the work product, in paper and the software, and but I'll write a check, to bring you up to speed. I'm not canceling this whole thing. I'm just saying we're delaying it, but I want to pay up to this point, and I want the work product up to this point. And I'll get back to you when we're ready to proceed. Okay? And they were disappointed, but they understood. And I said, financial times are crazy right now, and I just want to take a deep breath before I go forward with a $800,000 at cost, which I'm sure you're going to build beautifully, as if it was your own, because this is, you're a new company, and this would have been an exciting new product for you, for your brochures and things, and it would have been a great place for us to be. Let's just wait a minute on it, okay? You don't mind? So we shook hands and walked out. I never went back because I just was scared about building what would be called $1 million house. And the land was $200,000, for God's sakes. $200,000 lot on the 6th hole in a private community called Avila, A-V-I-L-A. Anyway, I didn't do it. I got the CAD somewhere, and I have an elevation which was drawn out in color, and it was framed. I gave it to Daniel. Wanted it. I had to do something with it. I couldn't throw it away. There's no way. I took 2 years of my life designing the damn thing. I couldn't throw away 2 years of my life in my spare time. I was doing other things to earn a living, but I was consumed and put in drawing that, which I did. It was really quite. Anyway, so that's computer-aided design. That's artificial intelligence. It lines everything up and creates this 3D modeling, and you can rotate around and go over top of the house, and you can look from underneath. I mean, it had all these different perspectives, that make no sense, but that's computer-aided design. There's nothing, all these new airplanes, it's all computer, huge, not in physical size, but in capability. There's a cockpit. You got two pilots that sit up there, Um, you know, and supporting those two pilots is an incredible array of computer tools that are used to fly the plane. I mean, it can fly itself, you know, and the pilots just observe. It's like, you know, it's like self-driving, supervised. That's what Tesla calls it. Well, that's what autopilot is in an aircraft. It's autopilot supervised. Now you could take a nap, and the plane won't stop. Remember, it's flying in the air, but it'll fly itself until it runs out of fuel. It'll probably alarm and kick and scream, warning you that it's about to run out of fuel, and showing you airports that you need to set down in to refuel yourself, because your fuel tank is running on near empty. And empty is not where you want to be when you're speeding along at 400 miles an hour, 20,000 feet up in the air. Maybe with family, friends, business associates in these seats. Beautiful engines. You know, this is the Gulfstream G800, brand new plane that has just been finally certified by the FAA with all the testing it does. And look, it's got winglets already built into the plane to aid in the fuel economy. You get about 7% better fuel economy because of the way the winglets help the wings go through the air and dealing with the eddy currents that are produced with the air. And it makes the aircraft slide through the air, you know, more efficiently than without the winglets. And you notice every commercial jet has winglets on them now. Matter of fact, Boeing and, you know, manufacturers, you know, build it into the plane when they manufacture new planes, you know. You'd almost have to say, I don't want it. I can't imagine why. Anyway, the G800 just... but that's all artificial intelligence right there. I was a coder 50 years ago. Can you imagine? And I wrote code. That my first coding assignment as an executive with a company and a coder. They sent me to IBM coding school. Can you imagine? IBM had a special class in the T-Rex Center down here in Boca Raton, where it was like a 1 week or 2 week thing. You went every day, and they teach you how to. Most of the class was COBOL, COBOL, the COBOL programming language. IBM used it. I mean, this is in the 70s, and you know, the U.S. government bought all kinds of COBOL operating computers, mainframes, if you will, using the COBOL computing language, Common Business Oriented Language, COBOL. All of that is what I would term artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is nothing new. It's just that the media now has something to call it. You know, other coding language, you know, that doesn't, what does that mean? You know, it means artificial intelligence. So they've come up with you know, AI as something that the media can hover around, but it embodies every coding language that there is, all in one adjective, you know, or noun, depending on how you use the word. You know, I've been involved in artificial intelligence for my entire, you know, business life. In college. Yep. Excuse me. Yeah, I was in college for 6 years with a combined degree in biochemistry and biology as a pre-med student. And I, wrote all kinds of, back in the early days, instead of writing COBOL, you had these big pegboards, that were like 18 inches wide and 14 inches high, and it was about a half inch thick, and you'd plug these wires into different, and then you'd put it into the back end of the IBM 403 computer, and it would tell the machine how to, international business machines, the IBM 403, you can look it up. It's a big old thing that looks like a refrigerator on its side. And it had pulleys and motors, and, when the IBM tech would come there to service it, it was like servicing, a big electric motor with all these gears and pulleys and things. Unbelievable. It's an advanced, it's like a big old adding machine, but it was all electric. And it's manufactured by the IBM. You could buy an IBM 403, and you'd have to hire someone that was trained like me. I was actually teaching it how to program an IBM 403. And instead of writing code, you wired the machine. You hardwired it with this board you'd put in the back of it. Where you take all these numbers, add them up, and print them on a piece of paper, and you had the print imports and the computer outports, and you'd move this signal from here to there, and some wires you couldn't plug into that port because the signal was coming or going, and if you use that plug, the signal would come out of there and go into something else, and stop the machine in a certain way. So I took one of the wires. You had these wire sets that were like 14-inch wires with plugs on each end, and so I cut it in half and put a diode in there, which was what do you call it? A silicone device that would allow current to go in one direction only. So I'd have it set up so it would go from this end to that end, and no signal could go backwards through the wire. That was the problem. So I used that wire, and I could use that whole part of the circuitry of the IBM thing, but just by having a wire with a diode in it, and then it opened up a whole new array of things I could do with that accounting machine that ordinarily couldn't be done without using the diode. So I sent my drawings and a sample of the wire, to IBM to let them know they could tell all their people, that were using this equipment, that this was a way of being able to use this port and to open up all these features simultaneously with the other features without having the signal go backwards through this particular wire. Anyway, I don't know if IBM ever did. IBM was in a state of coming up with something new, every 6 months. So they probably moved, I'm sure of this. By the time I sent them what I sent them, which they already knew it was the problem, because you didn't want the signal going backwards through this wire. So obviously you just put a diode in there and it would just allow the signal to go in one direction only. I mean, but they just never did anything about it, probably because they're moving on to the next more advanced piece of equipment anyway. That's my guess, because I never heard back from them. You'd think they'd say, Jimmy, we like what you, why don't you come work for, I was really interested in working for IBM. I could never get them interested enough to make me an offer. So I didn't go. I asked them a couple of times. I don't know what it was. I never sparked enough attention to have them do that. Anyway, so there's a lot of artificial intelligence in almost everything that we use. even down to the simple thermostat hanging, in your wall. I mean, I can see from my phone exactly, what the temperature settings are. I can show you right here. I touch that home button right there. Whoops, I have to touch it. It's connecting to my Nest. See in the very top, Nest. There you go. RPP 812. That's Royal Palm Plaza, apartment 812. I put that in there so we know what we're talking about. And the living room is at 72. I'm trying to figure out how to use this. So there it is. It's connecting to the thermostat. It's connected because it's all internet connectivity. I guess I touch it. There you go. Living room is 72. Master bedroom temperature. Let's touch it. There, yeah, this is better. So you can see the fan is operating. It's set to 72. The temperature is 72. So the compressor is not operating. It doesn't need to cool the unit down, meaning the dwelling unit. So that's why it's black. If the compressor went on, it would turn blue. If we were in the cold climate and it was cold outside, then if the temperature went down to 71 and you wanted 72, it would turn red to show you that the furnace is operating. But we're in a warm climate where the compressor would turn blue when it's operating to cool down your unit. My living room is at 72. I have a sensor in the bedroom on top of one of my credenza things, and it's at 72. The guest room is 69. The vents are open. I could shut down one of the vents to force air in the rest of the apartment a little bit more, but so the guest room is 3 degrees colder than our other rooms. It doesn't have a ceiling fan, so I figured, you know what, we'll just let that room be a couple of degrees colder since it doesn't have a ceiling fan. I have a ceiling fan, and there's electric in the ceiling. I can't find the fan, and I know I have it somewhere. It's in a closet. Anyway, freezer. I put a sensor, since the Nest thermostat, has almost an unlimited number of connections, or maybe it's 4. I don't know. Anyway, my freezer is at minus 5 degrees, and my refrigerator is not. Oh wait a minute, there it is. It's 42 degrees in the refrigerator, and minus 5 degrees in the freezer. And the relative humidity in the living room is 48%, and the outside temperature is 80. And there's my outside temperature. The thermometer, you can't, it's out of view. It says 80.8. Relative humidity, 56% outside. Anyway, you've got all this electronic crap. Now I can turn the thermostat to cooler by hitting this arrow, this down arrow, and you're going to see that turn blue in a second there you go, see it all turn blue because it's telling you that now the compressor is operating to chill this unit. And see, now the compressor went back off because 72 is fine for this time of day. Any of these other sensors I could select to be the temperature that will be the baseline for the entire dwelling unit. You can see over on the right side, I have a camera that is focused on the front door and the 2 white doors. I'm going to show you, if you're watching, I'm going to open and close one of them and you'll see it move. I'm going to do it right now. You should have seen that door open and close. Oh, there you see. Yeah. Yeah. I touch the picture and you get a big view of it. Let me do that one more time. See it? Opening the door and closing the door. I mean, that's like no big deal, but anyway, this is all artificial intelligence. That's what I'm trying to see. Coming right around to artificial intelligence. There's nothing artificial about it. It's just intelligence for making our lives better. Now, this is the only camera. I used to have more cameras operating, but the Nest system decided to not support the older version cameras. So I'd have to buy new cameras. You know, I had like 4 of them operating, and this is the only one that was a modern enough to carry on with the operating system that Nest, Google bought Nest. So if you got this same exact thermostat today, it would be a Google thermostat instead of a Nest thermostat. Anyway, I can touch this little gear up in the upper right, and you know, you have all kinds of, you can set a schedule. You want the thermostat to go up during this part of the day and down during that part of the day, and all that kind of stuff, which we're not going to deal with. I have up in the upper left, there's a number 27 up there. What does that mean? I have 27 messages. Reminder to change the filter. You know, yeah, which I do. I just sometimes forget to tell Nest that I actually did change the filter. Anyway, so that's the home. I mean, it's as simple as your thermostat. Now this, I can change the thermostat from anywhere in the world, you know, because of the internet, because the thermostat is connected to the internet. And with my phone, I have the same app on the phone as I have here on my iPad. I'll just shut that down, and that's the end of that. I have an app here to operate my calculator. It looks just like the HP 19C that is a separate device, but now I just get it right here on my iPad. And I paid like $20 for this software, and you know, here's preferences. I go here and change the format and how many decimal places I want. The brightness, I can turn that up. You have the old face and the new face up in the top. Fixed number 4, you know, you have all decimal places. I can change that to 2 to make it more common to what. How many decimal places do you need, for God's sakes? All right, the click volume, I have that turned down, but this is all stuff I'm done. So 22 divided by 7, 3.14. And then if you want the whole, let's see, how do you do that? There's a button you can push and you can see all the decimal points. But pi is 3.141596. 3.14159. Yeah, I remember that to 6 decimal places, which is sufficient for most math. The iPad is an amazing device. And the way you can order stuff with Amazon, and you know, we live in quite an interesting age. Here's the sunrise I took yesterday, Tuesday actually, at 6:56 a.m. Hey, there's our leader. Just when the sun peaks over. Here's some fine wine that we tried. Josh, it's a red. Cabernet Sauvignon. There's a drone that has all kinds of connectivity that connects, into the GPS system. Here's some exotic camera equipment. That's it looks like the lens of a camera. Looks like it has cameras facing several directions at once, and this wiring is external, and this is a test. So it's got it's got 5 different propellers, because apparently this payload package is heavy. It looks like there could be a release where you could just drop that whole thing for some reason. Like if it was set up for, an incendiary or a bomb or something. So that's a form of a drone, rather than like a self-flying airplane. I have a little drone that's in a little suitcase here. It's unbelievable. Folds up. Yeah. If I wanted to take pictures of, aerial photographs of where we live. Look at this picture. That's a moonrise. That's a real video. I took a look at that. You can see the moon. This is with an iPhone. I was turning up and down the sensitivity of the imager, and I'm going to turn it down right before the end. See, whoop, right there. And then I pull that frame. Whoop, whoop. Yeah. This will just repeat itself. Yeah. The iPhone is a magical device. Anyway, this is a depiction of all kinds of photos. Movies? Photos? There we go. We're getting back to, instead of recent days, I want today. And so we dealt with Tim Cook and what they're doing with the new iPhone with artificial intelligence. Here's a little story about these 2 wires. And there's, on the right is the typical Apple USB-C cable, and on the left is the Beats USB-C cable. And what they like about it is that it can handle several hundred watts of power. There's a little circuitry right underneath the B inside this gray looking wire, and they like also because it has this little rubber thing so that the cable, which is a braided cable, won't bend at the plug, because that bending tends to fray the cable to where it breaks off, in a sense. So this rubber thing makes it so that it graduates, and it's like a stress relief off of the casing of this hard case. Anyway, these cables are like half the price of the Apple cables and has some extra features to it. Plus, it'll go faster wattage. Here's a blow-up view, and you can see the braided cable as it enters this plastic area to act as a strain relief. And a wire called, a 6-foot cable, 2-meter cable is, like $15, and handles up to 200 watts of charging power, and it's shielded so it could be fast data transmission between your Apple device and a storage device for like backing up your device in case you were, going to get a new one. And then you bring the backup into the new one. Yeah, anyway. Now here's a crazy story that I'm going to have to research further. America just stepped into what sounds like the plot of a science fiction movie. During a major science and technology conference recently held in Texas, the Trump administration top secret official claimed that the United States now possesses the technology that can manipulate time and space. Now that knows you could turn back the clock. Or stop the clock. I don't know. So that needs to be further, but that's something that all of us should probably pay attention to. Because that sounds pretty exotic. I mean, it's just one story written by this, this guy. This indication is who drew the picture, of this time machine looking clock face. Yeah. Okay. We are now 2 hours and 18 minutes. You can see here the elapsed time. We started at a little after 8, like 8:03, and now it's 10:28 a.m. And I don't know about you, I've drunk about 2/3 of my coffee, and remember, we're at Denny's having a conversation. We're actually not at Denny's. I'm in Cafe 812 up here at Royal Palm Plaza on the 8th floor, overlooking the beaches of Boca Raton and the Alina Condo Project and the sporadically the Boca Raton Hotel and part of the golf course, and about 15 degrees of the Atlantic Ocean. You can see the ocean from our place, and it doesn't look like there'll be anything that'll interfere with that view for the foreseeable future. And so there. And there's a handshake between Trump and Jeremy Powell, the Fed chairman, that is basically hired by the president, and it's for a 10-year term. And it seems like that 10-year term ends next year. And Trump says, I want him out of here. He's got someone else he'd rather have in there. We want someone in there that's going to lower the interest rates, because we have $34 trillion in debt. And Trump doesn't think that that'll create inflation because of everything else that he's doing with the economy. Meaning these tariffs are producing a tremendous, like 3 or 4 billion a day in money that's coming in to the U.S. Treasury in the form of tariffs, a 10% tariff leveled upon everybody that wants to sell its products to the United States marketplace, which the United States is. So what does that mean? Just simplistically, the population of the United States that has the capacity to buy stuff, which is, like aside from people that are 10 years old, kids that are 10 years old and so on, there are 277 million people over the age of 18, or 18 and over. I got that recently from some government statistic. There are 341 million total souls, and there are 277 million that are 18 years and over, because that's that census was taken to figure out how many people could vote. Now, can you imagine? I mean, just think of this. Out of the 277 million that people have they're 18 years of age and older, only 150 million voted. That's 100 million, over 100 million people didn't bother to vote. How crazy is that? Oh, God, that's disgusting. You know? And these are probably the ones that are complaining. And they don't even vote, for God's sakes. Anyway. And here, this numbnuts. Van Hollen meets with, a non-citizen who's in a Salvadorian prison because he's committed crimes in the United States and, because he jumped the border, and he's committed crimes in El Salvador. They're not letting him out. Are you kidding me? He's a criminal in El Salvador. And they said they'd take him back, so there he is. And we have our governor, Van Hollen, a senator from the great state of Maryland. What a schmuck he is. Look at this jerk. He's spending taxpayer money to meet with this guy in El Salvador. He ain't bringing him back. There's no way. That guy is in El Salvador jail. He's deported to the country of his origin. 2 courts in the United States have determined he's a MS-13 gang member. His wife has filed charges against him on several occasions as a wife-beating wife subject. So he's a dirtbag. And plus he jumped the border. He was one of the gotaways. They never had any signals that he was here. Biden administration let him in anyway, but Anyway, so here we are. It's the 18th of April. It's Friday. It's Good Friday. It's a religious day for 85% of the U.S. population is Christian. Most of them will celebrate the Easter, period, as we do. And that's all I've got to say. Artificial intelligence is here to stay. Apple has come up with version 18.4.1, and it fixes vulnerabilities. And I have downloaded and installed it on all of my devices, and I recommend all of you do the same. It's not beta software. It's been fully tested, by the Apple engineering, and it cures certain vulnerabilities, including excessive battery drain, which is always an issue because you want your battery to last all day long, and it should. And there was apparently some vulnerability that had this battery consuming power where it didn't need to. But there are other security benefits that are in this software upgrade, which I recommend everybody do. Do it tomorrow, but do it. You go to Settings, General, and then I'll show you. So your settings is your gear. It's down here in the lower corner of my display here on the bottom. I have it on the very right corner. Some people have it up in here. That way I can get to it no matter where I am. And then you see where it says. So when you touch General, there's a VPN I'm connected, Virtual Private Network. I recommend you go to CyberGhost, download their app, and give that a 7-day trial. That's also a security thing which you should do. It solves a vulnerability of people tracking your MAC address So it keeps people from actually getting into your device, your Apple device, and your Apple computer. I say device because it could be an iPhone, an iPad, or the MacBook. So general, and then you push software update. Now I've already installed it, see, so it says 18.4.1 is already in the system. About. And I'm going to press iPad, see 18.4.1, I can touch that. And this update provides important bug fixes and security updates and is recommended for all users. Now all users is billions, literally billions of Apple devices need this software update, and they recommend you do it now. So you should probably see a little red circle somewhere associated with that general tab or in this menu of things saying you got a software update. Now I don't have one because I've already installed it and downloaded it, but it usually shows up on this list, and you can touch that. It will take you right to here for the download and installation. It takes 8 minutes and you're done. I'm going to check the internet speed. There it goes. You can see it in green. It says you are connected to the internet as opposed to not connected. I had an issue with that last weekend. 55 mils. Yeah, see, this download speed is, I'm paying for 2 gigabits per second. I'm lucky if I get 2 megabits per second. I need to call them out here. I think my modem needs reprovisioning. And here the upload speed is 34. It needs to be 60. This broadcast operates on about 22, so it's just enough to get by because, you know, it's a wavy line. There's jitter in the response, actually, in this test. Jitter is 7 milliseconds worth of jitter, meaning the connectivity is, you know, it's wavy. The ping was at 55 milliseconds. That should be 15 milliseconds. So I'm not getting the performance that I'm paying for. And I have a feeling it's a hardware issue. Because I'm running on the recent software on everything. So, all right. You all have a great day. You can see the current time. It's going to be 10:40 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going bye-bye, and you have a great day. We'll see you maybe tomorrow morning. Like at 10. Marilyn may get her nails. She has her nails done. I'll be on here. If I get up early, I might do an early broadcast. Like at 5 or 6 a.m., which you guys on Saturday morning probably won't be there, but you can always listen to me later anytime you want, because if you go to @FAU4U, definitely with the with YouTube, and usually with Facebook, but they dropped off, and hopefully they came back on sometime. But YouTube is connected the full 2 hours and 31 minutes worth. So I wish you have a marvelous day. And sometimes I look at my screen and I forget where I'm at. So what I need to do is find the thing where it says April 18th, Friday, and make that there we go. Gotta make that full screen. Turn up the music, turn off the microphone. You have a great